On Christmas Eve 2025, a $61.5 million mansion in one of Los Angeles' most exclusive neighborhoods was quietly removed from the market. No announcement, no explanation, no statement from anyone connected to the owner. Just a listing that disappeared from the records on the same night most of the world was opening presents, while the man who owned it was preparing to spend the holiday behind bars. And the full story of how that house went from the crown jewel of a billion-dollar empire to an empty building nobody would buy is one of the most dramatic falls from power in the history of American entertainment. The house itself tells the story before a single word is spoken about the man who owned it. A 17,000 square foot estate built in 1933 in Holmby Hills, Los Angeles, one of the most security-gated and exclusive residential enclaves in the entire country, where neighbors have included Kylie Jenner and Jennifer Lopez. 10 bedrooms, a 35-seat private theater, a wine cellar, a gym, an indoor sauna, a lagoon-style swimming pool with an underwater tunnel, a basketball half-court. Sean Combs bought it in 2014 for $39 million at the absolute peak of his power. And for a decade, it stood as the physical embodiment of everything he had built from nothing, starting in the streets of Harlem. Because the empire that bought that house did not come from inherited wealth. Sean Combs was born in 1969 in Harlem, New York. His father was murdered when he was 2 years old. He grew up in Mount Vernon, raised by his mother. He founded Bad Boy Entertainment in 1993 after leaving Uptown Records. And what he built from that single decision changed the entire landscape of American music. The notorious B.I.G., Mary J. Blige, Faith Evans, Mace, a fashion line, a fragrance empire, a television production company, the Ciroc vodka brand. At its peak, Forbes estimated his net worth at over $1 billion, making him one of the wealthiest figures in the history of American entertainment. The Holmby Hills mansion was not a luxury. It was a trophy that proved every number was real. Then came the morning of March 25th, 2024. Homeland Security investigations agents arrived at the Holmby Hills estate with a federal search warrant connected to a sex trafficking investigation. The same morning, a second team raided his $48 million Miami estate on Star Island simultaneously. CNN broadcast footage of armed federal agents in tactical gear storming both properties. What investigators found inside the Holmby Hills mansion was later shown to jurors at trial. Multiple weapons, including AR-15 rifle parts, numerous pairs of women's high heels, sex toys, and dozens of bottles of baby oil distributed throughout the rooms of the property. The raid left significant physical damage to the interior, and the house that had represented the summit of a 3-decade climb to the top of American entertainment was now a federal crime scene. The decision to sell came fast. In the chaotic months following the raids, with legal costs mounting and pressure building from every direction, Combs initially sought $70 million for the property. That figure was revised down to $61.5 million when celebrity real estate agent Kurt Rappaport, one of the most powerful luxury brokers in Los Angeles, formally listed the property on September 4th, 2024. The timing could not have been worse. Exactly 1 week after the listing went live on September 16, 2024, federal agents arrested Sean Combs at a Manhattan hotel as he attempted to board a flight. The charges were federal, sex trafficking by force, fraud and coercion, racketeering conspiracy, transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment described years of alleged criminal conduct and the alleged use of his business empire's employees and resources to facilitate the crimes. The mansion listed to fund his defense was now permanently connected to the investigation that made that defense necessary. What followed was more than a year of silence from buyers. The most scrutinized real estate listing in America sat on the market with not a single completed transaction. Real estate professionals explained why publicly. Any buyer willing to pay $61.5 million still had to navigate the reality that the federal government could place a lien on the asset and control where the proceeds went. A court could have oversight of the entire transaction. The legal complexity surrounding the purchase was enough to push every serious buyer away before negotiations could begin. The only publicly reported offer came in November 2024, a $30 million bid from a California real estate firm, exactly half the asking price, citing reputational damage, physical damage from the raid, and legal uncertainty as justification for the 51% discount. Combs' representatives declined. The trial that followed produced a verdict more complicated than either side had prepared for. The jury acquitted Combs of the most serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, but it convicted him on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. On October 10th, 2025, U.S. District Judge Aaron Subramanian sentenced Combs to 50 months in federal prison and a $500,000 fine, setting the fine at the statutory maximum specifically because Combs had, in the judge's words, immense resources which enabled his crimes. The wealth that built the mansion had become the reason the punishment was set at its highest possible level. 2 months after sentencing on Christmas Eve 2025, the listing quietly disappeared. No announcement, no buyer, no explanation. After more than 15 months on the market at $61.5 million, a property purchased for $39 million at the height of an empire now worth a fraction of what it once was. The house was simply delisted in silence while its owner began a federal sentence scheduled to end somewhere around 2028 to 2029. As of March 2026, the estate sits empty and unlisted in Holmby Hills. The 35-seat theater is dark. The lagoon pool sits still. The underground tunnel leads nowhere useful. A house built in 1933 that survived 9 decades of Los Angeles history now waits. An architectural monument to an empire assembled over 30 years and dismantled in 18 months. For an owner who may return to it, sell it quietly, or rent it for $20,000 a night to people who have no idea what happened inside its walls. The mansion did not fall. The empire around it did. And when empires fall, they always leave something behind. Usually something with 10 bedrooms, an underwater tunnel, and a price tag nobody wants to pay. If this story showed you how fast everything can unravel, share it with someone who needs to understand what happens when power runs out of protection. Subscribe for more stories about the moments that changed everything. And tell me in the comments, what moment in this story stopped you completely? I read every single one.